What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. Craig, here we go, baby. Heading into week two. Well, week three for the college season. Week two for the NFL. We went 3-2 in the Super Contest last week. 4-3 in the Golden Nugget. We're on the right side of 500. We need to push it even further this week.
Yeah, the first week's usually tough, and I think we really overcame some things, I think, to win in the first week in both.
Like the Packers.
Like the Packers in both contests. Both contests we went with the Packers. My gosh. So this week it's interesting. We're going to add another college game to the mix. So out of the 7 games for the Golden Nugget contest, we're going to pick 4. You have a choice out of 7 to do whatever you want, I think, right?
Yes.
So we're going to pick 4 college and 3 pro. And then, obviously, for the Super Contest, it is all 5 picks against the spread in the NFL. Keep in mind, these are locked lines. So whatever lines you're seeing now may not be the same lines. And we're actually finally, like week 1, it took so long, Howard, in the NFL, that like the lines were not going anywhere. But now, of course, with injuries and things happening, things are moving around a little bit. And that's to be expected. But feel pretty good going into this week. I really do. I mean, we're not totally in sync yet on our Super Contest selections, but that's why we do this. We'll be here and we'll knock it out. We talk it through, right?
We've got 4 that I think we're both in agreement on, but one of them there's some shakiness to it there. That's already locked in though for the Golden Nugget.
Right.
So the question is do we double down on a pick that might have some we'll talk about it. Okay. So but yeah, listen, we'll make our 5th pick live here on the show. That's unheard of. We usually have it all there for you.
Usually we're done. And listen, the other thing too is we don't necessarily have to pick the same NFL games in the Golden Nugget that we do the Super Contest. But I think what this shows is that essentially, for people who are watching, the 2 picks in the NFL that we'll talk about for the Nugget and we double down on the Super Contest are probably either our favorite or we're just getting a massive line value there. It's one of those 2 things. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, well, let's get it started here. We'll start with the Golden Nugget. We'll start with the college game so that everybody can make sure they take care of that. First game, we're looking at the Virginia Tech Hokies at West Virginia.
Yep.
And Craig, I got to tell you, we're on the side of the favorite here. For some very interesting reasons. Home road splits galore.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story, I think, here. And we're going to have, as I mentioned, 4 games in college and 2 favorites and 2 underdogs. So that's the way that we're going to roll with it this week. Feel pretty good about the favorites. West Virginia is playing at home. Virginia Tech has looked better thus far this season. Otherwise, West Virginia would be a bigger favorite. But, people remember the first week of the season, Virginia Tech beat North Carolina, and that's kind of put them, sort of on the map. And at that point, they got ranked into the top 25. Now they're all the way up to 15th, and I don't think it's really justified. So, look, I think it's, as you mentioned, it's kind of like a home road sort of situation here, where Virginia Tech in their last 7 games, they're 1-6. On the road against the spread, and then the Mountaineers are 6-0 at home against the spread in their last 6. So it tells you that even though last year was a little bit wacky, that it is really tough to go ahead and play at West Virginia. It's always been like that through the years, whether it's been their new coach or even the ones in the past. The other part of this is that Virginia Tech, if you look at like the NFL rankings in terms of tight ends, Virginia Tech had one of the best tight ends in the country. He was really good against North Carolina, and he got hurt in the game last week. He scored a touchdown, had a bunch of catches. His name is James Mitchell, so that's a name maybe for the future, but he got hurt. He is not going to be playing in this game. He was basically the top weapon offensively on Virginia Tech, so that's a little bit of a part of it. But in general, Howard, you kind of go with those. I'm not big on trends from the 1990s. Like, I don't think that really matters.
Right.
But what this shows you is a couple of different things. One, it's very tough to win in West Virginia. And 2, when West Virginia is a very small favorite at home, they usually win. So going to go with that. The other thing, too, is that I like sometimes to take teams where they're at home, they're not favored, and then the road team is coming in as a favorite. Because it's like the home team is so jacked because they want to show that they're better than the team that's ranked. There's like a little extra, I think, there. And Virginia Tech has not proven really anything yet on the road. They have not. They've proven they're a really good team in Blacksburg, but I'm just not sure about Morgantown. So Only laying 2.5. A 3 gets us a win. Three, is it 3 in this contest or is it 2.5?
No, it's 2.5 in this one.
It is 2.5. Yeah, so 3 gets us a win. Just to be clear, I think it is up to 3. So we'll take West Virginia minus 2.5 for our first pick.
All right, second pick, we're going to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They're taking on Colorado. This game is in Boulder, so listen, it's a tough road win here for the Gophers, but we are getting 2.5 on this. Thoughts on the Colorado offense? I think that's really what it comes down to: is can their offense score?
Yeah, and if they can, we're going to lose this one. But Colorado has basically gone 2 weeks of showing that their defense is great and their offense is horrible. Last week they hung with Texas A&M, who is, they were right there in the playoff last year. I think they were 5th. They didn't quite make it with Jimbo Fisher, and Texas A&M, only scored 10 points, and Colorado still could not win that game. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter, and then basically failed to score the rest of the game. And they had trouble in their previous game as well. So right now, Minnesota, they've won 16 straight games out of the conference in the Big Ten. So that tells you that they're prepared very well for teams that it doesn't matter who they face. They're usually going to fare pretty well against them. Their top running back, Ingraham, is out for the season. So Trey Potts is their backup running back. I was not familiar with him until last week. He rushed for 178 yards. Still looks like they can run the ball. That's all Minnesota is going to do. It's kind of all Colorado is going to do too. So this is going to be a close game, probably a low-scoring game. But again, the issue for me is that if Colorado can't score at all, Minnesota is averaging 30 points a game. On top of it, at the beginning of the season when we did our season win totals, this was a game that I had them favored in. I thought they'd be favored at Colorado. I said that there would only be a couple of games all season long where they'd be dogs. One of them was Ohio State. They lost that one. So I feel like they have a good chance to win this. I think the wrong team is favored in this one. I think Minnesota should be favored. I think they will win. And that's pretty much my thought on that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Colorado can score. I think you'll know early on, second quarter, if you look at it and it's a close game, like 7-3 Minnesota, you'll feel really good about this one. Not really sure what's going on with the Buffalo's offense, but playing phenomenal defensively and horrible offensively. Usually that evens itself out. We'll take Minnesota plus 2.5 for the second pick.
Yeah, I remember, I guess it was Colorado last 2 years ago. Where you and I were talking about the Air Force offense and going up against Colorado, but not worried about Colorado's offense themselves. There, it still hasn't been good. So I like that pick a lot. I love our next pick. Come on, our next pick. It's the Sex Panther pick of the day here, right? 60% of the time, this works every time. USC fires their coach. Yeah. They're still 8.5-point favorites here over Washington. Washington State, actually. Sorry, Washington State.
If it was Washington, we'd take the other team probably.
Yeah, well, here you go. So USC, 8.5-point favorite over Washington State. Teams just get all amped up to support, when the coach gets fired and they support the guy who is who's leading the charge the next time around. It was like our bread and butter in the NFL. We ended up hitting a couple of times on that one, nice and big. I remember the Falcons one was juicy.
It was.
So let's take USC. Like, go Trojans.
Yeah, we waited for Adam Gase to get fired all year long. It never happened during the season.
I knew it was never going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't know why this is like this in sports. It's like this in baseball too. When they fire the manager the next day. Oh my gosh, the team just comes out like what and wins. I never understood this phenomenon, but it also applies in college. I mean, you're not talking about winning 80% of the time or covering 80% of the time, but the other part of this is that the timing is really interesting, Howard, because this is a team that USC was supposed to smash anyway. Washington State is really not good. They beat them 38-13 last year. Remember, going into the season, we talked about the Pac-12. I said that my long shot was USC. Yeah. So USC recognized that they had a big issue there. And the bottom line is that the best player on the field between these two teams is the quarterback of USC. His name's Keaton Slovis. He's fantastic. He was one of the Heisman possibilities going into the season. And it seems like they weren't using him in the right way, weren't letting him throw enough. I think that's going to happen in this game. Washington State, if there was anything that could slow down USC, it would be a team that could get to the quarterback. Washington State's defensive line is terrible. They only have 2 sacks in the first 2 games. I think this is a blowout. I think USC responds for their new coach. We see this happen all the time in sports. New coach, he's interim. They get that big bump initially. Maybe they win a few, and then things just come crashing down in the end. Usually, right? It just ends. But week one, 8.5 is USC. It's up to 9 also in some spots. I've seen some 8 though too. So this is going to be an interesting one to see where it is at kickoff tomorrow night. So our third pick is USC, the Trojans, minus 8.5 on the road.
All right. And then final pick here for college, our fourth pick of the night. This is another dog here that we're going to take. We're taking Florida State at Wake Forest. So I'm going to shout it out to my friends Chris and Rhea, whose daughter is a freshman at Florida State right now, and say that's not the reason that we're making the pick, but we wanted to shout you out anyway. So what do you got, Craig?
No, and if they were watching, they'd be yelling right now, going, "Are you nuts, Florida State? Are you insane? They lost. They're the worst team in college football. They lost to Jacksonville State last week." This is true. They lost. It was this right here, Howard. As long as I've been alive, okay, we are at the very lowest point in the history of Florida State football. We've reached it. This is it. There's only one way they can go from here. Well, I guess there's two. They can stay the same, right? They can't go any lower. It cannot go any lower.
Can you plateau on the floor?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is basically it for them. This is as bad as I've ever seen Florida State. It is now. You lose to an FCS team. So I think this is a decent buy low spot because it's just incredible for me to think that FSU is getting 5 points against Wake Forest. And I know you look at last week and you wonder, oh my gosh, where's the mentality of these kids? Their season is like over already. But I'm going to go the other way here. I think they're going to bounce back. Wake Forest, they are 2-0 to start the season. That's what makes them a favorite. They're also at home. They beat Old Dominion. They beat Norfolk State. They didn't really beat anybody, so they haven't been tested yet. The last time these two teams played, they were supposed to play last year, but they had COVID issues and the game got banged out, so they didn't play. So the last time they played in 2019, it was like Wake Forest's biggest win ever, but they beat Florida State by 2 in that game. So again, you have Florida State getting 5. The teams were not all that different, and you still would get a cover off of FSU in that spot. Also, before that, Florida State won in this series 7 times in a row. So the teams are vastly different. I don't go back to data from 2014. I don't think that that's all that relevant unless a team is like in its head. We just saw, recently last week, one of the picks that we got wrong was Utah BYU, right? Utah had beat them 7 games in a row or 9 games in a row. BYU ended up winning. But I think you're going to see the Florida State rise a little bit. I'm not saying that they're going to win the game, but they should not be getting 5 points. And if you remember, people are like, "Oh, you're crazy, you're taking that." Florida State played really well, and I don't love Notre Dame, you know that. But they almost beat Notre Dame in the first game of the season, and Notre Dame is on the same level as Wake Forest at the very least. I mean, Notre Dame's ranked in the top 10. I don't believe that should be true. But you're telling me that if they can almost be Notre Dame, that they can't even stay with Wake Forest? And the last play of the game last week is why they lost to Jacksonville State. No time left, Howard. Guy throws a pass right over the middle. You just YouTube it after we're done here. You will not believe how they scored a touchdown. It was just one of those, like, everyone is just falling at the same time, and Jacksonville State wins. So final college pick. I hate Florida State, so it tells you what it means to me. I'm a Gator here, and we're taking FSU in our pool. That shows you how I feel about it. It is money over your head and your heart. So FSU will be our fourth pick. So Florida State, USC, Minnesota, West Virginia. Those are our 4 college picks this week.
Lock them in, baby. Lock them in. All right. So the 3 games that we took for the NFL to complement the college picks, we'll just to start off, run it down right now with the Carolina Panthers, who in the Super Contest they're only getting 3, but in the Golden Nugget they're actually getting 3.5 here against New Orleans. I like getting that extra hook. I always like getting the extra hook, but we talked about using that for the Super Contest as well. It's already locked in on the Nugget. I mean, listen, I feel like, New Orleans at this point might still be kind of in a little bit of disarray, or still trying to figure stuff out. I mean, listen, I get it. Winston threw for 5 touchdowns last week. Kamara had a good game for himself too. This hodgepodge group of wide receivers, they're still not sure about, the tight ends. It's a divisional game here. I know all the dogs won last week, and I think that, maybe, it could be construed as overcorrecting, but I think that I think that the defense for New Orleans played over its head against Green Bay. I think Green Bay was shooting themselves in the foot the entire time. So to tell me that you're going to be able to shut down McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall Jr., Robbie Anderson, I don't see it happening like that. And I think that this could be a game that's a lot closer than some people think. And I'll be on the side of getting that extra hook there if it's a field goal game.
Yeah, and Carolina's very well coached, so I love their coaching staff with Rule and Brady. And on top of it, the thing with Carolina is I think you're going to find with them this season, Howard, is very similar to the Jets game. I think they're going to be playing a lot of those games this year. Like they'll play Atlanta very close, probably both times. But I think against the good teams, they're also going to play that way as well. And the most dangerous thing that you could do is be overconfident off a team that just blew another team out. And the Saints were that team last week. Arizona was another one last week that I'm not as high on this week just because I don't believe that they're as good as they are. Here's the truth. You have Kansas City. And look, throughout the history of the NFL, you had the 49ers scoring all those points. You had Denver scoring all those points for many years. But in general, the NFL, Howard, it's a league of parity. And a team that scores 35 points one week in general, they're going back to like 2 touchdowns or 3 the next week. But we get so caught up on one game, I just eliminate what I've seen the week before. And so I don't think the Saints are that good. I'll have to reevaluate this if the Saints go in and beat Carolina. My opinion will have to change on them if they win and win big. But throw away what you saw last week is in terms of a team scoring a lot. Unless you really think that they're like Kansas City, where they're going to run all the way through the Super Bowl. That team, of course, is legit no matter what they do. I don't think that the Saints are, so I am with you. And again, they lose by 3, we win. We'll even push. So yes, like that.
All right, next game. This one to me is the no-brainer. I hate laying points, especially double-digit points. But I mean, Browns, Houston. You want to talk about a team that blew out another team the week before, right? I mean, it was like Houston just beat the snot out of the Jaguars. They let them get back in. I mean, Trevor Lawrence still threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, but man, Houston is just not a good team. Not a good team at all. You give me the Browns. I'm laying 12.5. Listen, Nick Chubb's just going to run the ball all day long. They're going to slow down the pace. They're going to gradually build. Their defense is fantastic. There's no way that Tyrod Taylor and Mark Ingram are going to damage the Cleveland Browns. I think Cleveland goes up early, and I think they spend the entire second half just running that clock out, keep that lead. I mean, this to me, this game here, this has like 31-7 written all over it.
Yeah, Houston forgot that they were bad in week 1, and then they'll realize they're going to realize it this week. And look, what's amazing. Here's another thing that's amazing. It's like you're watching this saying, but come on, guys. Like Houston, they looked good last week, and they beat Jacksonville. We just spent 4 months talking about how Houston could go 0-17. And you're telling me off 1 week and 1 win at home against Jacksonville, you're willing to completely change your opinion because of 1 game? Come on, they're still the worst team in the league or close to it. So the other thing, too, is when you're taking a team that's laying a lot of points, you've got to make sure the team can run the ball at the end of the game. You have to make sure of that. Because if a team can't stop the other team from getting back on the field, naturally, even if the defense is good, they're going to score points. So I hate laying big numbers when there's not a good running back there. But Cleveland could just run this clock out when they're up big and just hand it off to Chubb and hand it off to Hunt. And I hate laying big points. But I think we were really, really smart to not go against Houston last week. We really were, because we could have easily done it. We could have easily said they're the worst team in the league and they're going to get – and then we looked at the line and was like, wait a second. Why is this line – if they're the worst team in the league, why is it – game 1, they don't know any better. We've seen this happen in leagues, in sports. Teams are just like, first game, first week, they're at home. Now that equation is going to change, and Houston probably now loses like 10 in a row starting this week. So
right now.
Yeah. I do like the pick. I do. I hate laying points, but I do.
I do too. I hate the double-digit points, but I mean, this to me, this is this is probably like my biggest number. This was like the first game I think that like just jumped right out at me. I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm even remotely backing Houston anywhere, even with all those points. Based off of last week. Third game that we're taking now. This one here, so it's locked. This pick is locked in. We have until 4 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, so until 7 p.m. Eastern to get our picks in for the Super Contest. Now, so we took the Indianapolis Colts. We took the Colts getting 3.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
After the pick was in, all of a sudden, stuff started happening. The Colts ended up, their offensive line dealing with injuries. Quentin Nelson and Eric Fisher were already questionable. But Braden Smith, their right tackle, was immediately declared out. And then, on top of that, Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell, two of their top 3 wide receivers, both pop up on the injury report on a Friday. One with an abdominal issue. I think the other one has a calf or a groin or a knee or something like that. Okay. But I mean, listen, we're locked in because here was the thing. Like, this was the rationale behind the pick, and I think that's worth explaining here because we watched the Rams beat the holy hell out of our good friends. We talked about this on Tuesday night also. We watched the Rams just beat up on Chicago, and everybody's all smiles for the Rams, and they're going to the Super Bowl now, and Stafford and Cooper Kupp are best friends for life, and it's going to be absolutely amazing, right? And then you've got the Colts, who just lost to Seattle, didn't put up a lot of points against a not-so-great defense, right? Why in the world is this spread only 3.5? Like that, you would think that at least 5.5, possibly even 6 with the Rams. So when a line looks as fishy as that looks, and Vegas is basically saying, oh, yeah, come on, take the Rams. They only need to win by by 4 points. Come on. Like that to me sucks the public in, and that forces me to pick the Colts.
Yeah, and look, at the time it felt like a good pick. I guess we can wait till tomorrow to make the final call. Now, full transparency, what you just told me with the wide receivers, I was completely unaware of. I know that you texted me earlier about that, but I mean, the Colts won how many games last year? Did they win 10 last year? Am I right about that?
I don't,
or 9?
I honestly don't.
I think they won 9 or 10 games. Howard, did they have any receivers last year either? I don't know. Did it really make that much? I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, Zach Pascal was pretty much their guy most of the year last year too, wasn't he?
Yeah, so, I mean, listen, they can definitely slow this game down if they do it right. I mean, you've got weaponry in Taylor and Nyheim Hines. And listen, Pittman and Campbell, they're just questionable. Right. So we don't know yet if they're going to be out. But
yeah, I mean, look, we could pivot off. Look, I'll tell you, when I get worried, Howard, is when I see the line change. Right. When I see, oh my gosh, the Rams are now -4.5, a full point. Then you have to ask yourself, wait a second, did we make the wrong call here? Are we on the wrong side? That's a big number to move. But I still see 3.5 pretty much everywhere. So I still feel okay about it. But let's do the Super Contest and see what we come up with.
All right. Well, there you go. So those are our picks for the Golden Nugget: West Virginia, Minnesota, USC, Florida State, Panthers, Browns, and Colts. Now, for the Super Contest, Panthers and Browns, we're in on it again, although we do lose that 0.5 point value for the Panthers. So we could end up with a push there if it gets a little dicey. So maybe just something to think about here as we go through it. Browns, lock it in.
We're in.
Lock it in.
Yeah.
I think the other pick that we're going to lock in, because we're talking about the Colts, the other pick, though, that I think we're locking in are the Titans, who are getting 5.5 points. Or is it 5 or 5.5?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. I have to look.
It's 5.5. There we go. So the Titans. So for me, listen, I love Seattle, and I hate the Titans' defense, but I also hate Seattle's defense. Right. So over under in this game is like 55. Right. I feel like this game could end up being a shootout. Tannehill with his boys, Russell Wilson with his boys, Derrick Henry will definitely see his work. and he'll get in there. But I see this as like two heavyweight prize fighters just trading haymakers back and forth until one finally, lands that blow and takes a 3-point lead or something like that at the end and wins. I think the Titans keep this close. They might not win, but they're definitely not going to lose by more than 5 points.
Yeah, if Arizona beat Tennessee last week 23-20, what would this line be?
If Arizona beat 23-20, this line would probably be down to 3.5.
Right? So this is just a huge overreaction to one game. And I don't like Tennessee either. But, I mean, it seems to me that the thing that ruins Tennessee is being really down big, right? Like, that's just probably the most obvious statement, right? Because they can't use Henry anymore. But it feels like when Tennessee is down, like, super big, they're dead, and then they have to rely on Tannehill, and then the defense can't stop anyone. But, I mean, what are the odds of Tennessee getting blown out in Seattle again 2 weeks in a row? I don't see that. I'm in agreement with you. And look, the Titans, I think, may have played their worst game of the season. I am not a Titans backer. I don't think that they're very good. They're going to go 8-9 or 9-8, most likely. And I think that they can win this game. Why can't they win? Seattle at home is not what they used to be. So, yeah, take the points here.
Yeah, I like taking the points here for sure. For sure. All right. The other game that we're looking at right now, also Minnesota on the road in Arizona.
Yep.
We watched Arizona beat up Tennessee last week. We saw Minnesota need overtime to beat the Bengals, and that was crazy right there. But you want to lean on the Vikings here, getting the 3.5 points. You're not a believer. I mean, listen, I'm not a believer in Cliff Kingsbury. I am a believer in Kyler Murray, but obviously the coach could kind of screw things up a little bit with the play calling, and I don't know, but you like Minnesota getting the points here.
Yeah, I just think, again, I don't think Arizona is as good as they showed last week. But you know what's going to happen is inevitably I'm going to be wrong. One of us is going to be wrong along the way. And one of the teams that we're talking about here today is going to end up being legitimately good. And we'll go at the end of the season, well, we were wrong. Like, we thought that maybe it wasn't an overreaction. And I know that there's just going to be so many people backing Arizona this week. But if they were so good, why are they only 3-point favorites this week against Minnesota? I mean, if they are the team to beat right now and the hot team and the sexy team, why are they only a field goal favorite against a team that just lost to the Bengals? So it's me. I'm just reading lines, man. That's all I'm doing here. It's not even about liking Minnesota. It's not about thinking they're good. It's just about I look at the spread and say, well, if Arizona
makes sense. If
Arizona was 4.5 or 5, then I would say, wow, like they're getting some respect. They must be really good this year. But they're still not. They're still, even after beating Tennessee by 3 touchdowns in Tennessee, they're still not. It tells you Minnesota's still pretty good. And they probably had a bad game last week. By the way, they could have won last week too. And then what would have happened if Minnesota would have beaten Arizona? Then what would the line be? Arizona -3, 2? So again, maybe one of the picks that I like we don't see completely eye to eye on, but I mean I'm willing to pivot off it if you can convince me. But that's one of the ones that I do like also.
I mean, listen, I you know what? I mean, let's just kind of look at some of the other games, and
Sure.
I think we're going to be able to rule some stuff out as far as it goes. I mean,
I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull up the current odds too. I want to see how it compares to.
All right, you pull up the current odds. I've got the Westgate odds right in front of me here, and let's just kind of let's hash it out a little bit.
All right, so we agree that we're taking Denver no matter what next week. So we're just going to pass on the game this week between Denver and Jacksonville, right?
I don't think we need to have to pass on it. I mean, again, like why if we're going to take Denver to win next week, and we already saw they're a favorite over the Jets.
Yeah.
All right, but if we're going to take them there, I mean, I don't understand why we look at this game. You don't think Jacksonville can keep it close?
No, I do. I don't think Denver's good. I think that I think last week was a mirage at the Giants.
So we could take the Jags if you wanted.
We could take the Jaguars.
You don't like it? Tell me why.
No, look, I personally would rather root for Denver to crush Jacksonville this week No, actually, I take that back. I would root for Jacksonville to beat Denver this week so we could get a better line next week because Denver's unbeatable at home in week 1, always. They never lose at home, and they're going to beat the Jets pretty good. And but Denver 3-0, doesn't that seem weird? I think they're going to lose this week. Denver's going to be 3-0 to start the season.
So then why don't we take the Jaguars?
So let's do that.
Oh, now you want to take the Jags plus 6?
I'm willing. I'm willing to do that.
Instead, in lieu of the Colts.
Maybe so. Bills Dolphins. I don't want to do.
Me neither. I don't want to do that either.
Bears Bengals. I don't know. Do you like one side in this one?
I mean, I kind of like Cincinnati on that side only because I hate the offense for the Bears, but I don't love it enough to say, hey, let's jump on this.
Yeah, my fear. I keep talking about it on my show. My fear, Howard, is that we take the Bengals, right? Yeah. And then they bring Fields in and he wins the game,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to happen at some point. Like with Vic and Vince Young, like guys that don't get to start, they come in and they win. San Francisco, Philadelphia. Gosh, I have no idea. I think Philly was underrated. They're pretty good now. And San Francisco's really good too. I don't know. Tough one for me.
Yeah, I don't want to pick that game either. There's a lot that we still don't know about both those teams. So I'm fine avoiding that. I'm not touching Jets Patriots.
No.
With 6. It's a rivalry game. It's just no bueno for me. Bucks Falcons with a 12.5 point spread. I can't say that. I mean, listen, you know me. I love the Falcons. I love Ridley. I love Matt Ryan. I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a thing. I even like Mike Davis, but do I like him enough against the Bucks to say that they're going to keep it close? No, not really. And do I think the Bucks could slam them? Yeah, and then get hit with a backdoor cover? I don't want it. I don't want any part of that.
Right. I agree. I feel like we're already 1-0 on the Raiders, and we should stop. We should just stop right here for the season.
Oh yeah. I don't want to touch that either.
Let's not take the Raiders again. We got in. We're in the house. But I don't want to take Pittsburgh either. I mean, I don't know who they are. I'm not sure. Listen, I did like Dallas. I really did, but I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, Tank Lawrence is a really big injury. That was one that stopped me in my tracks. When I saw he was out, Howard, I really at that point said, I'm not doing this game. I will never take the Chargers. That I will never do. But he is isn't he their best defensive player by far? Is there anyone close?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so
I don't think so. I'm on the side of the Chargers here. I'm going to. My feeling is that Joe Lombardi is turning this offense into something. All right, not having I love what they've got going on there. It's not Anthony Lynn anymore. It is not. These are not your daddy's Chargers, or maybe they are your daddy's Chargers. And we're going to get Kellen Winslow carried off the field.
I love that game.
Everybody loves that game.
Listen, the Chargers easily could have lost that game last week against Washington. Herbert threw a pass, it was picked off near the red zone. They gave the ball back to Washington, and Gibson fumbled. And they gave the Chargers back the ball, and they won. I still don't trust the Chargers. I don't trust the Chargers. I won't take them. No.
We're not doing it. We're not doing it. And I don't want to lay points in the Monday night game with Packers over Detroit by 11.
I would take Detroit in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, see, and I won't. I'd take Detroit.
I would take them.
Why did Dan Campbell call you up and threaten to eat your children or something? Is that
good coach here? No, I think it wouldn't stun me to see what we saw with Green Bay continue. It wouldn't stun me because. There's no overreaction here. There's still 11-point favorites over Detroit, right? Like basically what the line is telling you is, like last week, just throw it away. I'm not so sure. I mean, they looked so bad that even if they look like if on a scale of 1 to 10 they were a 1, and they move up to like a 4 this week out of 10, they're probably still not covering that game. So I don't know. I understand to stay away. I get it. It really it's like throwing up in your mouth taking Detroit. And we have had terrible luck taking them too. I will say that. So we'll pass on that. So do you want to take out of these 3? We have to pick 2. Jacksonville plus 6, Indianapolis plus 3.5, Minnesota plus what was the line?
Plus 3.5.
Plus 3.5. Those are the three.
I'm gonna go with you on Minnesota.
Okay, so now we're down to Jacksonville.
Or do we take the Colts again? I'm gonna vote for Jacksonville and just kind of split it on up, right? Because what we're hoping for is for Jacksonville to, beat up on Denver at some point here, so that way that spread, the Denver against the Jets, turns into like 2.5 or 2 instead of it's sitting at 3.5 or 4.
Yeah, no, we're never gonna be able to lay. I don't think we'll ever be able to lay 2 in that game. But yes, I am with you. A little bit of a hedge this week. That works for me. Okay, let's do that. All right,
there it is. Then lock it in. Panthers plus 3. Browns laying 12.5. Jaguars plus 6. Vikings plus 3.5. Titans plus 5.5.
4 dogs.
It's right. 4 dogs. 4 dogs. But is that an overreaction to first week, Jim? Sorry. I say overreaction, I immediately go to my buddy Jim. Oh man! All right, we're gonna
listen. Underdogs. There's underdogs are gonna win 60-70%. We're gonna have a winning week. It's just a matter of if we go 5-0. That's the only question at this point. I mean, you take that many dogs, in all likelihood, one is gonna get there. Handed to them, which is fine. But I like all of them. The Indianapolis one is definitely interesting and one that I'm going to have to tomorrow do some research on that too and see like where those guys are at and check practice reports and stuff, because you'll get a report from them, right? Because they're at home.
Yeah. We'll get the practice report. We'll get the information that we need. Again, these picks don't have to go in until that. And I'll tell you what, I'll tweet it out. If you follow at Wager Alarm on Twitter. You can also follow me at RotoBuzzGuy, Craig at Craig Mish. We'll tweet out what our final pick is going to be. We're just going to tell you the one game that we're waffling on, because we don't want to give those people who didn't watch our live stream the old freebie picks. No, we don't want to do that.
So Jacksonville last week was 3-point dogs on the road at Houston.
Right.
And now they're getting 6 at home against Denver? Like, something seems off there, no?
It does seem off.
Like,
but I mean,
they had a better line at Houston than they do at home against Denver.
Well, because Denver, come on, how great was Denver? They beat they won week 1 against the Giants. Giants who just put up how many points on the Washington football team?
But think about that for a second. Like, you talk about an overreaction. Like, man.
All right. So listen, I don't have a problem locking in Panthers, Browns, Vikings, and Titans. And then tomorrow we'll tweet out what our final pick is going to be, whether we're taking the Colts or whether we're taking the Jaguars.
You got it, Steve.
Thanks, Bill. I'd like to thank Ken, our producer here for today's show. That's going to do it for us here on the Wager Alarm live stream. Again, follow at Wager Alarm on Twitter.
I'm like crying before the end of these always. I'm laughing so hard.
For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. It's been Wager Alarm live stream. We'll